You spend your days trying to hold everything together, your plans, your image, your future. You grip life like a fist around water, believing that the tighter you hold, the safer you are. But the truth is, the harder you try to control life, the more it slips through your fingers. Control gives the illusion of safety. It makes you believe that if you can predict every outcome, you can prevent every pain. Yet life was never meant to be managed. It was meant to be moved through. Like a river, it can't be contained. It can only be entered. And the more you try to direct its flow, the more resistance you create against your own peace. You plan the perfect conversation only to forget to listen. You script your next move only to miss the magic of spontaneity. You spend your energy protecting yourself from uncertainty, and in doing so, you block the very surprises that could have changed your life. Control is just fear dressed as order. It whispers, if you don't handle everything, it will all fall apart. But what if it doesn't fall apart? What if it falls into place the moment you let go? There's a strange freedom in surrender, though it doesn't come easy. It feels like falling at first, like losing ground. But then something miraculous happens. You realize the ground was never the point. The point was to float. When you stop forcing, pushing, tightening your grip on how life should be, you start to feel its natural rhythm. You start to see that the universe was never against you. It was just waiting for you to loosen your hold long enough for it to help you. You don't drown by falling into the river. You drown by fighting it. So maybe it's time to stop swimming upstream. Maybe it's time to stop controlling. Because that's when life finally starts flowing. You've spent years trying to control the uncontrollable. You want people to behave the way you expect, timing to obey your plans, and life to unfold according to your comfort. But life doesn't work that way. It's not a machine to be programmed. It's a river to be entered. Every time you try to bend it to your will, it bends you instead. That's why you're tired, not because you're weak, but because you're swimming against everything that's meant to carry you. What are you really trying to protect? Control often disguises itself as strength, but underneath it lives fear. Fear of being hurt, of being disappointed, of losing what makes you feel safe. Somewhere deep inside, you learn that surrender means failure. You were taught that letting go is the same as giving up, but there's a difference between giving up and giving in. One is defeat, the other is wisdom. Control feels powerful because it gives you something to do when you're afraid. You overthink, overplan, and overanalyze because stillness terrifies you. Stillness forces you to face the truth. You were never really in control. Not of outcomes, not of people, not even of your next heartbeat. You can influence, yes. You can guide, prepare, and choose. But control? It's an illusion built on anxiety. And yet, it's such a seductive illusion. You check your phone for certainty. You plan your next 10 years. You try to fix other people's feelings, because if they're okay, maybe you'll finally feel okay too. But control is like a mirage. It looks solid until you reach for it. The more you chase it, the thirstier you become. Life was never asking for your control. It was asking for your trust. The river doesn't need you to direct its flow. It only needs you to stop resisting. Trust doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what you can, and then allowing what is beyond you to unfold without fear. You can prepare the boat, row with intention, and still know that the current decides the pace. Because the mind fears surrender. It believes control equals safety. But the paradox of life is that the more you control, the more chaos you create. When you let go, order begins to appear on its own. Like breath returning after panic, Balance returns after release. Think about the times when life surprised you for the better. The job you got after rejection. The love that came when you stopped searching. The clarity that arrived after you finally stopped forcing answers. Every one of those moments was born from surrender, not control. Life doesn't reward perfection. It rewards openness. When you stop clenching your fists around how things should be, your hands become free to receive how things are. You stop editing reality and start experiencing it. You stop trying to fix the moment and start living inside it. You start to realize that uncertainty isn't the enemy. It's the birthplace of everything you've ever called magic. The truth is, life flows, whether you fight it or not. But when you resist, you miss the scenery. When you trust, you begin to float. And floating doesn't mean apathy. It means alignment. It means working with life instead of against it. It means understanding that peace is not found in control, but in cooperation. The mind always says, if I can control everything, I'll be safe. The soul whispers, if I can trust, I'll be free. The distance between those two voices is the difference between surviving and truly living. And yes, surrender will feel uncomfortable at first. Your mind will panic, your ego will fight, and your fears will shout. But as you practice letting go, something deeper begins to awaken. A quiet confidence that says, whatever happens, I can handle it. Because control is rooted in fear of the unknown, but trust is rooted in faith that you'll adapt when it comes. You stop asking life to be predictable and start asking yourself to be present. You stop fearing the waves and start learning how to ride them. And that's when everything begins to flow again. Not because life changed, but because you did. What if the thing you've been clinging to isn't saving you, but suffocating you? Letting go doesn't mean losing. It means making space for something new to enter. It means allowing life to surprise you again. It means remembering that uncertainty is not chaos, it's creativity in disguise. You don't need to control the river. You just need to learn how to float. There's a reason your shoulders ache and your mind never rests. You've been trying to manage what was never yours to manage. You wake up already braced for impact, rehearsing the day before it even begins. You plan every conversation, predict every reaction, tighten your grip on a life that was never meant to be clenched so hard. But life can't breathe through a closed fist. It only moves through open hands. Why is letting go so terrifying? Because control gives you a false sense of safety. It tells you that if you can predict enough, nothing unexpected will hurt you. But it's the unexpected that grows you. Every breakthrough you've ever had came from something that didn't go to plan. The job that fell through led you somewhere better. The person who left created space for the person who stays. The silence you feared forced you to hear your own voice. Life's wisdom hides inside its interruptions. The need to control is just the mind's way of saying it doesn't trust life yet. It believes everything depends on its effort, that surrender is the same as failure. But surrender isn't quitting. It's cooperating with reality. It's saying, I'll move with what is, not against it. The tree doesn't resist the wind. It bends. The wave doesn't fight the current. It flows. The flower doesn't rush to bloom. It opens when it's ready. You can't demand harmony from a universe you're in conflict with. Peace begins the moment you stop insisting that life should be something other than what it is. You don't have to love every moment to accept it. Acceptance doesn't mean approval. It means acknowledgement. It means saying, this too is part of the story. Once you do that, even pain starts to feel purposeful. It becomes the soil that growth blooms from. How much of your suffering is self-made? Not the pain itself, but the resistance to it. The story you tell yourself about how it shouldn't be happening. You tighten, you fight, you panic, and the moment grows sharper because you're pushing against it. But when you stop resisting, something softens. The pain may still exist, but it no longer owns you. You start to feel a strange calm in the middle of uncertainty, a quiet strength in the middle of chaos. Control always comes from fear. Trust always comes from love. Every time you choose trust, you realign with love. Love for yourself, for life, for the mystery of it all. When you stop trying to manipulate outcomes, you give space for grace to move. You begin to notice little signs, coincidences, synchronicities, moments when life seems to whisper, "See, I've got you." It doesn't mean nothing ever goes wrong. It means even what goes wrong begins to make sense in hindsight. You start seeing that life isn't random, it's responsive. It mirrors your state of being. When you're tense, everything feels tight. When you're open, everything flows more easily. Control tries to force order from the outside. Trust creates order from the inside. You'll notice this shift in small things first. The conversation you no longer rehearse goes better than the ones you planned. The day you stop micromanaging your schedule feels smoother than the ones you obsessed over. The project you release your grip on suddenly finds momentum. It's not magic, it's alignment. Energy moves freely when you stop blocking it with fear. What if life isn't something to fix, but something to feel? You were never meant to master it. You were meant to dance with it. The river of life doesn't need direction, it needs participation. When you dance, you don't control every step, you respond. You listen to rhythm, you feel, you adjust. That's what flow is. It's the art of being responsive instead of reactive. And in that state, something changes in your body. The breath slows, the jaw unclenches, the mind softens. You begin to realize that control was never protection, it was prison. You've been standing guard at a gate that was never locked. The world isn't waiting for your control, it's waiting for your presence. To live in flow doesn't mean life stops challenging you. It means you stop fighting the challenge. You learn to move with it, to trust its current. You stop demanding certainty and start inviting curiosity. You trade tension for tenderness, judgment for wonder. That's when you start to feel it, the rhythm of life itself. Not as a clock to obey, but as a heartbeat you're part of. Every inhale, every exhale, every rise and fall is a reminder you were never supposed to carry the whole river. You were only meant to float inside it. The truth is, life has always been trying to carry you. It's been placing signs, sending people, aligning chances, but control blinds you to them. You're too busy forcing the door that's closed to notice the one that opened quietly behind you. You call it bad luck when things don't go as planned, but sometimes not getting what you want is the only way you learn what you truly need. The universe doesn't punish through resistance, it redirects through it. How many miracles have passed you by because you refuse to let go of your version of how it should look? That's the tragedy of control. You get so attached to the idea of perfection that you forget to experience reality. You script the conversation, the outcome, the future, and then miss the real beauty happening in the unscripted moments. Life isn't a performance, it's improvisation. The most authentic scenes are the ones you didn't plan. We call it trust when we believe in something bigger than us, but trust isn't blind faith, it's deep intelligence. It's the knowing that you're not separate from life, that the same energy beating your heart is guiding your path. You don't have to manipulate it, you just have to cooperate with it. Trust doesn't mean you stop acting, it means you stop forcing. You can't be in control and in flow at the same time. The two are opposites. Control is a clenched fist. Flow is an open palm. Control says, I must make it happen. Flow says, I am part of what's happening. One creates exhaustion, the other creates ease. And that's the difference between surviving and living. Think of every time you tried to push something before it was ready. How heavy it felt. The job you chased that didn't align. The relationship you tried to fix long after it was over. The version of yourself you kept trying to become because you thought peace existed somewhere outside your current skin. Each time you pushed, life pushed back, not to punish but to protect you from something that wasn't meant to fit. What if letting go isn't weakness but wisdom? The strongest people aren't the ones who control everything. They're the ones who can surrender without losing themselves. They've learned that life moves better when you stop trying to lead every step. Because flow isn't passive, it's partnership. You still show up, but with curiosity instead of fear. You take action, but with trust instead of tension. You do your part, and then let life do hers. Every river knows where it's going, even if it doesn't know the path. The same is true for you. You were never lost. You were just trying to steer from the wrong seat. The mind wants to drive. The soul wants to glide. And when you finally let the soul take the lead, life doesn't get easier, it gets truer. You start noticing small harmonies. You think of someone and they call. You let go of one plan and a better one unfolds. You stop overthinking and start receiving. Coincidence becomes conversation. Timing becomes trust. And you realize that the universe has always been speaking to you. You were just too loud to hear it. When was the last time you felt guided instead of responsible? That's the feeling of flow. It's not laziness, it's listening. It's allowing life to surprise you again. It's giving up the arrogance that says, I know what's best, and embracing the humility that whispers, maybe life knows better. When you surrender control, you become teachable again. You become open to wisdom you couldn't have planned. Surrender doesn't erase your will. It aligns it. It connects you back to a rhythm that's bigger than fear, bigger than deadlines, bigger than your plans. The river doesn't ask permission from the mountain. It simply finds a way through. In that same way, when you stop resisting, your energy finds direction naturally. You stop asking, what should I do? And start feeling what wants to move through me. You start trusting the pauses as much as the movement. You begin to understand that stillness isn't stagnation, it's preparation. Like the seed under the soil, nothing looks like it's happening, but everything is. The silence that once scared you becomes sacred. You start to see that waiting doesn't mean wasting, it means watering. What if your life is unfolding exactly as it should, even if it doesn't feel that way yet? That's the kind of trust that turns anxiety into calm. You realize that every detour was direction in disguise. Every delay was a form of protection. Every ending was clearing space for something better to begin. Life isn't testing your strength, it's teaching your surrender. And the moment you finally stop trying to control it, it stops needing to prove how little control you had all along. The river doesn't punish those who let go, it carries them. And that's the beauty of it. Once you learn to float, you don't fear drowning anymore. Because you finally understand that the current isn't against you, it is you. You reach a point where you're too tired to keep fighting the current. Every plan feels heavy. Every expectation feels like armor. You start to wonder what might happen if you just stopped forcing, stop anticipating, stop rehearsing life before it arrives. And in that tiny pause between your grip and your release, something shifts. The world doesn't collapse. It exhales with you. At first, surrender feels like losing. Your mind will panic. It will scream that everything will fall apart if you stop holding it together. But the longer you stay in that stillness, the more you notice that the world keeps turning without your interference. The sun rises, the body breathes, the heart beats, life moves endlessly, with or without your control. You start to see that your job was never to control life. It was to participate in it. What if you've been confusing responsibility with rigidity? You were taught that control equals discipline, that letting go equals apathy. But real discipline is trust. It's doing your part, giving your best, and then allowing life to do what it does best, adapt. Control tries to dominate. Trust collaborates. One isolates you from life, the other makes you a part of it. When you live in flow, decisions start to feel lighter. You stop overanalyzing every step because you realize there's no wrong direction, only detours that teach you what you needed to know. You stop trying to predict outcomes and start listening for alignment. You start asking what feels true right now instead of what guarantees safety later. And somehow that question always points you where you need to be. You stop seeing obstacles as enemies. You start seeing them as redirections. A closed door becomes an invitation to rest, to rethink, to reroute. You no longer judge the moment by how it looks, but by how it grows you. The rain doesn't ruin the day anymore, it waters it. When did life become something to control instead of something to collaborate with? The ego says, I am the doer. The soul says, I am the dancer. When you dance, you don't move the music, you move with it. You don't control rhythm, you surrender to it. You allow yourself to be guided by something larger, and that's when the grace returns. The same rhythm that creates oceans and stars begins to guide your small steps, and suddenly everything starts to make sense again. People who live in flow don't have easier lives, they just don't fight reality. They know storms pass, they know loss transforms, they know nothing is permanent except the current itself. They've learned the art of relaxing into life, even when it's messy, even when it's uncertain. They understand that every unknown is simply a new part of the river revealing itself. You stop trying to fix yourself. You start learning yourself. You stop demanding answers and start trusting timing. You begin to see beauty in imperfection, rhythm in chaos, meaning in silence. The irony is that when you stop trying to control life, life becomes more orderly than it ever was under your care. Because flow has its own intelligence. It organizes everything you were too afraid to loosen your grip on. Sometimes letting go means walking away. Sometimes it means staying still. Sometimes it means laughing in the middle of what used to make you cry. But it always means the same thing. You're choosing trust over tension. You're choosing to believe that life doesn't need your fear to function. You realize that everything in nature flows naturally until something resists it, and that something has always been you. Who would you be without the constant need to control? Probably freer, softer, more human. You'd cry when you need to, instead of explaining why you shouldn't. You'd speak when it matters and stay silent when it doesn't. You'd stop living through survival patterns and start living through curiosity. You'd rediscover how beautiful it feels to not have all the answers. You begin to love differently too. When you stop controlling, love stops being a transaction and becomes a presence. You no longer try to shape people into who you want them to be. You let them reveal who they already are. You don't grip relationships out of fear. They flow naturally, growing where they're meant to, fading when they must. You learn that love doesn't need control to stay. It needs freedom to breathe. And in that space of flow, you finally meet peace, not the peace of everything being perfect, but the peace of being perfectly okay with whatever is. The kind that doesn't come from things going right, but from knowing you'll be all right, even when they don't. That's what life was trying to teach you all along. That you were never supposed to hold the river, you were supposed to move with it. You were never meant to master uncertainty. You were meant to make peace with it. You were never asked to predict life. You were asked to trust it. The moment you truly let go, something magical happens. The world opens up. Opportunities come easier. People align naturally. Creativity flows through you like electricity. You stop searching for miracles and realize you've become one. You've stopped fighting the river, and now you finally know what it feels like to flow. At some point you realize that all the trying, all the planning, all the mental gymnastics were never what life asked from you. Life only ever wanted your attention. It never needed your control. It only needed your participation. You've spent so long gripping the steering wheel that you forgot to look at the scenery. But when you finally loosen your hands, the view becomes breathtaking. You begin to see how much of your pain came not from what happened, but from the story you told yourself about it. Control always demands certainty. Surrender invites meaning. In control, you ask, why is this happening to me? In surrender, you whisper, what is this teaching me? One contracts your heart, the other opens it. And when your heart opens, life flows. What if the universe has always known where to take you? You start remembering the moments that didn't make sense at the time, the detours, the heartbreaks, the losses, and you realize that every one of them was part of a larger choreography. The delays protected you. The disappointments redirected you. The endings gave birth to beginnings you couldn't have designed on your own. You start living lighter. You stop trying to be in charge of the waves and start listening for their rhythm. You stop fearing the unknown because you've discovered something deeper than certainty, faith. Not the kind you recite, but the kind you feel in your bones. Faith that no matter what happens, you'll meet it with open eyes and steady breath. Life becomes slower, but richer. Mornings feel sacred again. The small things, a stranger's smile, the warmth of sunlight, the quiet between words feel like gifts instead of gaps. You realize that flow isn't about everything going right. It's about being right where you are. It's not about escaping chaos. It's about carrying peace inside it. You no longer need to know how everything ends. You don't demand closure before resting. You understand that the story writes itself as you live it, and that the more you let it write through you, the more beautiful it becomes. You become both author and audience, both wave and ocean. Who are you when you stop fighting what is? You are softness without fear. You are strength without armor. You are life unfiltered. You stop thinking in straight lines and start moving like water, finding your way around every rock, flowing wherever gravity calls. And the world, sensing your ease, begins to ease around you. People meet you with less resistance. Circumstances unfold with less friction. Even challenges start to feel purposeful because you no longer meet them with war. You meet them with awareness. The irony is that the more you surrender, the more life gives you what you once tried to force. Opportunities come when you're not chasing them. Clarity comes when you stop demanding answers. Love arrives when you stop looking for someone to complete you. Everything that once felt out of reach begins to find its way to you. Not because you controlled it, but because you finally aligned with it. You understand now that control was never power. It was fear disguised as logic. Real power is trust. It's the quiet knowing that you're part of something vast and intelligent, something that knows the way even when you don't. Real power is presence. It's being here, fully awake, moving with life instead of against it. One day you'll look back and smile at how tightly you once held on, thinking that was strength. You'll see that real strength was the moment you opened your hands and said, "Whatever comes, I'm ready to meet it." That's when life started flowing through you instead of around you. That's when you stopped surviving and started living. Maybe that's what freedom truly means, not the absence of responsibility, but the absence of resistance. The freedom to breathe without needing a reason. The freedom to be led by life instead of dragging it behind you. So breathe, loosen your grip. Let the current move you. The river has known its way long before you learned to swim. You don't have to hold it anymore. You just have to trust it.